It's time to get all the juice from the NFL Combine, baby. There's a lot happening in New York Jets land. We got a special guest. We'll break it all down next, right here on Boy Green Daily. It starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
You're fucking Russian!
What's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcast. And a even better show, perhaps, is the Gangs All Here podcast with this special guy who covers all things New York Jets for the New York Post. That is Brian Costello, who's down there in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Brian, it's great to have you back on the program.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Well, Brian, you asked Aaron Glenn, how confident is he that they can find a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers in 2025? And Brian, Aaron Glenn did not like your question very much, and he sort of didn't answer it at all, and then he just went off in a different direction. So I guess I'll flip the question to you, Brian Costello. How confident are you that the New York Jets will be able to find a better quarterback in 2025 than Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, not very confident, Paul, and that's kind of the point. But the same thing I have written. I understood why the Jets had to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I've been writing that since November, but I felt all along a new coach coming in here was going to have to establish himself because I knew flipping the culture would be a big part of the new coach, and tough to do that with Aaron Rodgers. He's a huge presence. 41 years old. Is he going to really be interested in learning a new offense? There's a lot of complicating factors with Aaron Rodgers. The hard part and the argument is the alternatives aren't really better from a football perspective. And I understand that. And I don't expect them to acknowledge that completely, but I think the question had to be asked. And he wasn't mad at my question. He was mad at they just didn't want to talk about Aaron Rodgers. It was pretty clear their mindset is turn the page, move on. I get it. That's their messaging. But I thought, they had to answer the questions yesterday. It was the first time we talked to them since they made the decision official. I think it's going to be tough for anyone to come up with a scenario where they have a better quarterback in September of 2025 than Aaron Rodgers.
And with that being said, I guess I'll start off here with a small one and it'll go bigger. If they don't have a quarterback that's as good as the one that they just had, it's going to be a lot harder to win more games with the lesser quarterback then, right?
Not necessarily, because like we've seen, Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be the difference last year and they won 5 games. The schedule dictates a lot. And we can sit here and guess at how good this team's going to be or that team, but you can see we're wrong about that a lot. Like even – I've started watching the season back, Paul. I always go back and watch every game again. And, watching that Denver game, which was obviously a monumental game in the Jets season, but they were like a 1-win team at that point. I think they had won 1 game, and the perception was the Jets should have rolled over them. Mm-hmm. They were a better team than we thought at that point. They ended up making the playoffs. Like Bo Nix got much better. So, you don't know, but the schedule is a huge thing. Health is a huge thing. Obviously, how many injuries do you have? It's easy to sit here and go, oh, this quarterback is going to mean they're going to win this many games. I don't think you can really do that. I think there's a chance they can win more games next year, even if the quarterback play is not quite as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so then maybe that's going to result in my Q&A back and forth with you right now being different, but a lot of fans are looking sideways when AG and Darren Muger are saying, hey, our plan is to win now and win immediately. And they're like, well, you don't even know who the hell your starting quarterback's going to be, and you're promising and whispering sweet pleasantries in my ear about winning now, and then all of a sudden we fast forward boop, 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 on the TiVo to the season. We're like, wait a second. This team's just as bad or worse than they were before. That seems like a hard thing to sell, not knowing who the quarterback is, and then telling us that there are plans to win right now.
Yeah. I actually wrote something for my Post Plus newsletter on that topic because I thought it was interesting that they kept saying we're going to win now.
Yeah.
Because I get what they're trying to do. I think, Paul, I think that messaging is to the players that are currently on the roster. Because remember, there's not a team meeting until April 7th, I think it is when the spring program begins. So Aaron Glenn will not be in front of his team for another 6 weeks or so. So his only way to get messaging out is through us right now and through the Jets social media and those kinds of things. So I think he's talking to them. I think he's talking to prospective free agents that like this is not going to be a rebuild. But I think what's interesting, Paul, is I think they're raising the stakes for themselves.
I agree.
Because you get a honeymoon period usually your first year as a coach and GM.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember like Salah's first year was, we're young. It's about growth this year.
Right.
The messaging that year. And it was like, okay, the expectations were low. So if you're going to set the expectations high, you better deliver something because it could get hot quick here. And I also think, and you probably know better than me, Paul, from your interactions with fans and stuff. I feel like, I don't know, the Jets fan base feels different to me this time.
Mm-hmm.
Other times there's been a reset in the organization of just kind of, there's more fatigue.
Quite.
I can't give this regime 3 years to figure this out. Like it's been 14 years of no playoffs. It's been 9 years of losing seasons. There hasn't been a home playoff game since 2002 season, 2020, January 2003. So what always interests me is when people come to the Jets, they think that stuff doesn't really affect them because they weren't here.
Right.
But it does. Like because it's going to it weighs on the organization. And I think so, I'm curious, this win now message, does it change a little bit in the summer? Does it change when we get to the season? I'm curious to see how their messaging goes from here.
Well, you have the right temperature. Again, there is that fatigue that may not have existed previously. So that's 100% true. And that's what I said to myself as well when I was hearing them continue to promise this win now. I'm like, when I start thinking back to first-year coach and the messaging, no mandates, none of this. Hey man, we've got work to do here. There's been a lot of very open conversation about that. So like I said, I found that interesting. We'll see if that comes back around. If things do not go well, wait a second. You guys said it here based on wins. Because I love doing this with you, Kaz. Predict the week 1 starting quarterback for the Jets. Who is it?
So, look, I'm going to go, Paul, just with the odds. The guy that's on the roster is Tyrod Taylor, right? So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about Tyrod Taylor right now. He's here, and I don't think he's getting cut. I think he's going to be on the roster. So if I'm a betting man and I'm looking at it that way, I'm betting on him. If you're like, Justin Fields, the Steelers would have to let him go. The Jets would have to sign him, or Kirk Cousins. Like there's a condition to all these other guys right now. So I'm betting I'm taking Tyrod Taylor as my guy. I thought they were lukewarm when they were asked about him yesterday. I thought it was, they said some nice things about him, but it wasn't like they were pumping him up. I think there's some moves coming. I don't know exactly what those moves are. So if I'm betting right now, I'm betting on Tyrod.
Okay, so tell maybe you just answered it there, but tell me if I'm reading too much into it. Connor Hughes says, "Hey, so it's probable that Tyrod Taylor's your starting quarterback, right?" AG, he's like, "Whoa, let's not put the cart before the horse here."
Right,
like, hey, man,
it's February
draft, right?
Yeah.
But I thought the normal BS coaching answer again. Yeah, he's a quarterback on the roster. Of course, he's a starting quarterback. Like that, we've gotten those kind of answers before.
I don't think anyone would promise you the quarterback's going to be in September right now if you have uncertainty. Even like the Colts, like they said there's more of a competition. Right. Like I don't think anyone, unless you have someone who's locked in there, is going to say who the quarterback's going to be in September and February. I think if we'd asked him like, hey, if you're playing a game Sunday, who's your quarterback? I think he'd say Tyrod Taylor. Okay. But yeah, projecting it down the line, I didn't expect him to really buy into that as much as Connor tried valiantly.
Yeah, I love it. There was a lot of ones that he sort of twisted. Like I loved it on the trade up. Do you believe the team is in a position right now to be aggressive to move up, considering the other needs, and then trading up? And then Darren Mucci said, "Yeah," and we're kind of like, "Eh? but I could trade up, could trade down, and then I thought it just sort of killed it. So is
yeah,
that,
yeah, that's the classic
okay.
GM answer this time of year. They're open. They're open for business. They're open for everything. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, you asked another question to General Manager Darren Muji, and you said, "How active will they be in free agency?" He just said, "We have a good plan," and then said nothing. So I asked you, Kaz, give us the truth. How active is this team going to be? The New York Jets of free agency.
Yeah, I still I don't think they're gonna go crazy, Paul. Like I just don't think they're gonna be the day one spenders. I just don't get that vibe right now from them. There's still 2 weeks. There's still, like the stuff is percolating right now. Like right as we speak, I'm in the hotel, Paul. The Jets are in this hotel. There are a million agents down in the lobby that have meetings with all the different teams. This is where you're starting to see some stuff kind of leak out today. Not necessarily about the Jets, but Matthew Stafford and this and that. Like that's going to happen the next few days is when. So I don't think they're going to be, big spenders. They've got holes though. They have a lot of holes in this roster. So I do think they're going to have to be somewhat active in free agency to fill those holes. You can't fill them all in the draft. And you don't want to go into the draft with a bunch of holes where you feel like you have to draft for need. So, I think there's going to be I think they'll be active like in the second wave of free agency and the third wave, which they've kind of been the last few years has kind of been their MO. It's been a while since they've been day one spenders. So I think that's probably the way it's going to go.
Are the Jets going to let Jamie and Sherwood hit the open market?
Good question. I'm not sure about that one. Again, I would think those meetings are probably happening. I saw Drew Rosenhaus, who's Jamin's agent. He's here, obviously. So he's probably going to meet with the Jets at some point and talk about that. That was one, I had him on my list and didn't get to him yesterday with Glenn. I would have been curious what they probably wouldn't be very honest, but what their evaluation was of him. So, there's only less than 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Period.
Correct.
So 10, 11 days. So, we're going to find out pretty quickly here. I don't see why Jamie would do anything really early.
Why would he? Yeah, right.
Yeah, to me, if you're a player, get to that negotiating window, see what you can get before you re-up.
Are any of the let me rephrase it this way because Jamie is a really intriguing guy to fans, but I'll rephrase it. Are there any in-house Jets free agents that are set to hit the open market that are a priority for this current regime to bring back?
Not that I know of, Paul, but again, to be completely transparent here, these guys have been on the job for a month. I do not know them very well, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are texting me every night and telling me what their plans are. Even when you know the guys pretty well, they don't tell you that. They really try to keep their plans close to the vest. We'll see, as I said, agents might start, there might be some news coming out of after agents meet with them and stuff that they're moving on. But I have not heard that any of these guys are priorities right now. But that doesn't mean they're not going to be re-signed.
What's the so Connor Hughes, speaking of one of your buddies on the beat, he said that Morgan Moses is not expected back, and I saw that. I'm like, what? Why not? Why wouldn't they? So what's happening there, Morgan?
I would just think, and again, I don't know. I didn't see. I saw Connor's. I saw kind of aggregated, so I don't know exactly what he said, but I just think Morgan Moses is going to be 34 years old, right? He's been battling injuries. He valiantly battled injuries last year and played through them. If you remember his last year in Baltimore, he had a torn pec that cost him time.
Right?
Yeah, so he's breaking down a little bit. He's getting older. I would think you're probably looking to go younger at that position. And I'm not saying necessarily 22-year-old, but maybe you want a 27-year-old that's just coming up for their second contract, and you're looking there at that position. That to me is logical. I don't think it's necessarily against Morgan so much. I do think the Jets got older last year. They kind of had that, they felt like they had a window, and the free agents that they signed last year were older, and Morgan was a trade, but Tyron Smith and Mike Williams was a little bit older. So I think this year they're probably they need to prioritize getting a little bit younger.
Yeah. For Connor, he was writing a piece about something else, and that's just the thing that stood out. He just said it sort of matter-of-factly. Morgan Moses not expected back. No reason or anything provided. So I got a lot of Jet fans cocking their head sideways at it, which is sort of interesting. But to your point, wanting to get younger, perhaps, and maybe Morgan just wants to go somewhere and win, which I couldn't possibly blame him for if he wanted to go in that direction. Any free agents Jet fans should circle as potential targets?
I'm not there yet, Paul. Again, I think
okay.
we still got to see where we are for the next
okay.
week. I think we'll start. The picture will start to become a little bit clearer. But even again, it's usually muddled all the way up until free agency. You never know exactly who they're going to go for. I mean, obviously, if the Steelers don't sign Justin Fields, that's the one everyone's going to be focused on. Is are the Jets going to go there? And we don't know exactly what their view of Justin Fields is, but I think he's a guy. Quarterback obviously is going to be the one that's the highlight of all of it, and we'll see if the Jets go after him.
What about the fifth-year options? The Jets have time. It's normally not till early May, but we've got Sauce, we got Garrett, we got Jermaine. Any note or thought? I
don't see why you wouldn't pick up the fifth year on all of them.
Okay.
I don't see any reason not to. Obviously we expect Sauce and Garrett to be looking for contract extensions, and we'll see where that goes. Like Muji didn't really answer the question about his philosophy, on that. Not even. I was actually curious more in the philosophy question, because there are a lot of GMs now who say like no one's getting a contract after 3 years.
Right. That was Douglas, right?
Yeah, Douglas was like that. Obviously, he made Quinnen was really the only example, but he made Quinnen wait. So and I get that. I get that perspective. So I'm curious to see how Muji handles it. But yeah, I mean, picking up the fifth-year option has no effect on that stuff anyway. And why wouldn't you? All three of them have shown to be good players. Jermaine had the injury last year, but I still think it's worth giving him the money for the fifth year and making sure he's locked up.
But do you expect extension talk? So, like, put fifth year aside, just in general, potential long-term extensions to be discussed this offseason at some point with some of those guys?
I think the players are going to want to discuss them.
Sure.
So,
I bet.
I'm curious how Muji handles it. And again, like, we don't know Muji at all. We haven't seen him operate, so we don't know how he'll do this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, right, Surtain got a contract after 3 years, I think, in Denver. So he's been 3 years.
That's right, yeah.
I think he did. So, yeah, look, if it's me, Paul, I'm locking up Sauce and I'm locking up Garrett. Right?
Okay, boom.
I am locking them up. And because to me, they are two really, really good players. And I know there's been issues. Like, I know Sauce's tackling wasn't terrific at the beginning of last year. Right. I think he's a great player. I think Garrett's a great player. I think you need to establish that young great players with the Jets are going to stay here. You guys all know the list of Keyshawn and John Abraham and Darrell Reeves and Jamal Adams and Leonard Williams, and the older folks can go back to John Riggins. Like, there's been like young stars who've left the Jets, and some of them haven't done much after they left, and others have. But it's very few and far between guys who just stayed here the whole time. And I think Garrett Sauce deserved that. I think Jermaine needs to show something after the injury. I don't think Jermaine can look for a contract right now, but I would lock them up, and that you can tailor it so that it doesn't really affect your cap that much in the first year, first couple of years. So I would do that. But to me, I think it's just important to keep Aaron Glenn was like, we want to keep good players in the building. Yeah. I'll show us. Right. And then like the third year argument, like, to me, the number's only going up next year.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
And if you believe in the players, then the number's going to go up, not down.
Yeah. Jamar Chase is going to get paid. Right.
100%.
I don't know who the other cornerbacks are that might get paid, but the number's going up and the salary cap's going up. So there's room for it. And like, if you're not going to pay these two guys, I don't know who you're going to pay. Like, to me, they're good players. Sauce has been all pro twice in 3 years. And, Garrett has put up really good numbers with not good quarterback play. So yeah, I would be holding on to them very tight. And to me, you lock them up now, you might be saving money. It might look like club friendly in a few years.
Yeah, because those fifth-year options are now fully guaranteed. So those
Yeah.
just again, unless I'm not over the cap, guys. So like I look at it, but I don't know if I fully understand it. So if those are all fully guaranteed chunks, when they're looking at the cap a year from now and they're on those fifth-year options, all of a sudden we're like, whoa, boy, those are a lot of whacks at the pinata there.
Yeah.
Chunks.
I mean, the thing there is you probably could do a contract extension next year and whack
Okay,
the
I see.
5th-year option, right? And
Right.
so then you lower the number
Okay.
there. But yeah, it's yeah, and I just I don't know too. This isn't the reason I do it. I think it sends a good message to the locker room that you're going to
Sure.
reward
Yeah.
players that play well. And you right now, I don't know what they're doing at quarterback, but they don't have money tied up at quarterback right now. So you can do it there. That's another reason you can do it.
Again, Insider Brian Costello, New York Post. Guys, the gang's all here, Jets podcast here on the show. Brian, how have you enjoyed your back and forth with AG early on here? Media scrum, presser
Yeah, I mean,
opportunities?
the press conference wasn't much. The introductory yesterday was good. I mean, I like that he goes like he's a little combative. I think that's fun. I think that it's definitely good for copy and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting to know him. I
Yeah.
I don't really know him yet, and
Mhm.
we'll see. And then when you kind of get into these are sort of like bigger press conferences, like it feels like big because there's a huge crowd
Right.
around you
Of
and there's
course.
these cameras. We'll see, like when we get in the day to day, when we get to training camp or even
For sure.
OTAs, and it's like little smaller in Florham Park. I'm curious to see how it goes.
What's throw another one that's just a recent thing. What's your reaction to the NFLPA report card? Jets were not graded well, Brian Costello. They were not at all. And again, obviously, this has nothing to do with Darren Muji, AG, and these guys, but still, the report card's a report card.
Yeah, I have some issues with the report card. I don't know exactly how they do it, Paul. Like I'd
Right.
like to know a little more about the methodology.
Sure.
When is it done? Because I remember this was an issue last year, right? The Jets
Yep.
didn't score last year. I mean, someone told me that it had been done like in like October is when they do it.
Now, how do you
So
judge? Yeah. Wow.
yeah, so like and then is it like there's a lot of people in a locker room. So I think guys who are top of the roster have a different view than guys who are bottom of the roster.
Definitely.
Like
Yeah.
what's the mix there? And then like some of it doesn't make sense to me where I like even put the Jets aside.
Yep.
I just saw a Broncos reporter tweeted that Sean Payton got a B, which makes him the 26th coach out of 32. Yeah,
Wow.
so it's weird stuff
What
like
the-
that. And then like the Jets' food got criticized, right? And it
Yeah.
got worse.
Again. Yeah.
But the grade went up. It was a D- last year. It's a C- this year. So yeah, like it's not perfect methodology. I think there's some good info there for them.
Mhm.
Look, I think the Jets facility is very nice. It's been 17 years though now. Like it's hard to believe they've been there that long
Wow.
for me. And I haven't really seen major upgrades since they moved there. So I do think there's probably things like, there's parts of the building I never see. So there could be
Right, of
upgrades I don't
course.
know about. But I'm in the locker room a lot. The locker room is basically the same as it was in 2008 when they moved in. So does the locker room need to be bigger? There's always a lot of temporary lockers now, Paul, because I think, when after COVID, they expanded the practice squad. There always seems to be more people. They probably can make the locker room a little bigger, a little nicer. The weight room, I think, could be a little bit bigger. That hasn't changed. So I would be listing on stuff like that. We eat the food, the media there. I think the food's pretty good there.
That's what I've heard from most of the media, to be honest. From
Yeah.
most of the reporters I'm texting or talking with, they seem to love the food.
Yeah, I'm not
I
going
don't
to
know.
complain about the food, but
Yeah.
obviously I'm not my body is not a high-powered professional machine, so maybe their evaluation of nutrition is different than mine, but I like their food. So and I think like with Woody Johnson,
Right.
I think it's important that he acknowledged that he needs to be a better owner at the press conference, and it feels like it's been open season on Woody for a while now, and I think he acknowledges there's things he has to do. But I was interested. I don't know if you saw Ryan Fitzpatrick's tweet.
No, I did not.
Fitz said out of the 9 teams he played for, the Jets facility was by far the nicest facility he ever
that's
played.
nice.
So
Okay.
he sort of said about it could have changed in 9 years. Maybe they
I guess,
downgraded.
right. Yeah,
He goes,
sure.
he said, or maybe today's players are soft or like to
Oh,
complain.
I'm sure that's going to cause some juice.
I can't remember
Well.
exact word he used, but something
Yeah.
like that. So, yeah, they like the other part to I question about the methodology too is like if you're 22 years old and this is the only team you played for, how are you comparing it to other things? And like,
Exactly.
is it compared to the University of Texas, right? That like those
Yeah.
colleges have insane facilities. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But like, do you need a miniature golf course in your facility? Or do you really not
Right.
need that? Do you need a bowling alley in your, or
Yeah.
is that just crap that colleges do to get high school kids to go there?
Right.
So, I think there's some value in it, but I don't take everything that's in the report card as like majorly important.
All right, fair enough. A couple more before we get you out of here. So AG and Muji used some interesting words. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Like when they're talking about Davante Adams, for now, he's on the roster. They didn't seem to use that verbiage with everyone else that they talked about. What are the chances the Jets trade Davante Adams?
I don't know how you can trade him, Paul, because the cap number,
of course,
everyone knows they're gonna have to cut him. The
Yeah.
only question is like, would he come back for a lower number? But I don't think he's gonna want to come back without Rodgers. So, yeah, I think he's gone. And yeah, I think the for now was a pretty telling statement.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what maybe they're waiting to see if they could get like anyone would bite on a trade. Like, there's no reason you don't have to cut him now.
Right, you don't have to do him a solid, right? That changes nothing for you.
And like really like doing him a solid. It's not even if you cut him now, I don't think he has a robust market right now. I think the market would start for Davante when free agency hits anyway, and when teams are ready to start putting the pieces together. Like, it's a rare guy who gets like cut and there'd be like a huge market for it right away. I think Davante is a very good player. I think there's going to be a market. I think there's going to be teams interested. I just think the way this unfolds, teams are still in the planning phases right now. So I think you'd probably be signing. As long as they cut him before free agency starts, he'll be fine. If they hold on to him longer than that, then it gets hard for the player.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this. Again, Muji said what every GM says. Yeah, could trade up, could trade down, could stay in the middle. Yeah. What are the chances Jets trade up for a quarterback? A lot of buzz about that among fans on social media.
Yeah, I just don't see it, Paul. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's where they're at right now, team building wise. Now, that being said, if they have a strong conviction on a quarterback, do it. Like, you do whatever you can to get that guy. Like, look how many quarterbacks we've watched come through the Jets for the year. So if you watch Cam Ward and you walk away and you're like, that's the guy, man. That is the guy. Go ahead, do whatever you got to do to get him. Is my philosophy. But I'm not sure. And again, I'm not a draft expert. Like, I don't pretend I watch all these guys all the time. But from what I read from the people whose job that is, doesn't seem like Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have that kind of scouting report right now, that they are like can't miss game changing quarterbacks. So to me, if that's how you feel, you're not trading away future picks or anything to get them.
What about the Mel Kiper Jr. scenario? Shedeur Sanders just falls into the Jets' lap at 7. Now what's the conversation? I've heard people say, that's a disaster putting him in New York. But to me, he's handled the pressure of being the son of a Hall of Famer pretty well so far.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that part of it. I'm not worried about that part. It's the evaluation of the player.
Fair enough.
If you think you can play, like, that's if he falls in your lap and like you think, go ahead, take a shot. I mean, the chances are you're not going to make a second quarterback pick.
that's the harsh reality, right? Yeah.
So like you better feel good about it if you're going to pick him. But if he falls to 7 and you like him, go for
it. Brian, what combine number is this for you?
Oh God, that's a good question.
Okay,
probably like 14ish, 13ish, something like that. I missed one for the birth of my daughter.
Oh, okay. That seems like a fair reason.
That was a good one. And then obviously there wasn't one in 2021.
For COVID, right?
Yeah. So it's probably 12 or 13, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And what do you hope to get out of it when you go and do these combines?
Yeah, the combine is really like, just seeing people and talking to people, getting to know people, like obviously trying to get to know some of the new staff, seeing agents, that maybe don't return your phone calls but here you can get in front of them and talk to them. I do like seeing some of the prospects just like to talk to them. I don't go to the drills, but like I did go to Mason Graham today.
Oh, okay.
And like, obviously I just like to see, guys who could be Jets. I want to go to Tyler Warren tomorrow, talk to him. I like to get a feel for them. And then obviously the press availability with the coach and GM is important. It's the first time we get to talk to them really since the season ends, a lot of times. So, that's the combine life, and hopefully get a steak one night while I'm here.
Hey, yeah, there you go. That's good. Last one for you. Have you just heard? I try to end it always in this. Is there anything in the notebook? Anything that you've heard? Rumors, buzz, anything Jetsy at the combine?
There's not a lot of buzz right now with the Jets.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's indicative of where they are, Paul.
Okay.
Like, I just think when you have a new coach and a GM, they're playing catch up for a while, right? Like, they had to like introduce themselves to the scouts,
right?
So like if it's a GM and coach, especially the GM, like if it's a GM who's been here, you're already having a ton of scouting meetings. Like you're meeting in November and December. Or you had your free agent meetings in January. Like you're much further along than these guys are right now. So I think they're just starting to dig in on that. I think in terms of agents, Muji was not a guy who I think is in a lot of agent meetings other than like the last like 2 years in Denver. So I think he needs to get to know some of the agents and they get to know him. So yeah, I think it's just indicative of where they are, and they're not like the Stafford sweepstakes. I think is going to be the main story for the next week in the NFL. And I don't think the Jets are going to be in the Stafford sweepstakes. Like it came out today, the Giants met with him.
Yes, right.
Here, right. I think there's a report that the Raiders met with him and some ski chalet in Montana or something with Tom Brady. So, I just think we're still the Jets really aren't in that part of it yet. So I don't think there's usually the rumors you hear here, are usually that big ticket item. At first, like Rodgers a few years ago and Carr, that was big.
Okay, last one here, and just your reaction or thoughts to this, because I've heard people say this. When a new regime comes in, they want to make a splash. It's like the draft day. The fans like to get wet, Sonny. Give a splash.
I don't agree with that premise.
Okay. All right, good.
Totally. Okay. I don't. I think you have the leeway not to make a splash when you're new, right? Like I think you can.
Sure, right.
I don't think. I think guys who tend to make the splash are the guys who are worried about their jobs.
The Giants,
yes,
Stafford winning right now.
Yeah, they're in that mode right now. And the Jets, obviously, 2 years ago, going for Aaron Rodgers was like, okay, we whiffed on Zach Wilson. We better do something. So I don't think they have to do. I don't think the new guys necessarily have to do a big move. I think they're going to be popular this year. Up until unless the season goes poorly, like they'll be popular for a while without making big moves.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking time with all the combine action happening here. I think last time we had you on was for the combine. It's an annual tradition now.
There you go,
Brian. So we're going to have to keep doing this, puppy. So I appreciate it, Brian.
All right. No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. We'll take a quick time out. We'll take your phone calls next here on Boy Green Daily.